Welcome to the Newsmakers Podcast. I'm Billy Hollowell, and this is a show where we go behind the headlines every day to bring you an interview with a pastor, entertainer, politician, or other notable news figure. And this is a show, again, it's daily, but it's based on our weekly TV show, which is also called Newsmakers. You can watch it on the CBN News channel and also on our YouTube page. And on this show, every day, we dive deep. It's a little more longer form with one of the people who you will often see on our Newsmakers show or across the CBN News platforms. On today's Newsmakers, worship leader and Christian singer Matt Redman joins us to talk all about a new version of beloved hymn, How Great Thou Art. This is a song that has inspired Christians for decades, and in celebration of its 75th anniversary, Redman joins other Christian artists in coming together to create a new version of this song. We get into the history of the song and why this new version truly matters. With no further ado, here is Matt Redman. So 2024 is the 75th anniversary of How Great Thou Art. I've got to ask you, you are one of the many artists involved in this new rendition of the song. Why do you think the song has resonated historically so much with people?
Yeah, it's a fascinating one because it definitely, you go around churches, different streams and expressions of church. You'd be hard pressed to find someone who doesn't find some kind of connection to this hymn. And I know as soon as it hit the shores of America, all those years ago, Billy Graham crusades and stuff, it just went like wildfire. And I think it might be because it has this beautiful story. It starts with creation, gets to the cross, but we get our chance to say what we think about those things. I think some of the best hymns, they're like a classroom and a chapel. They tell us something inspiring, educate us, inspire us, bring something to mind. And then they give us a chance to respond to that, say what we think about that. And this hymn does that. In the verses, it's like that classroom. And in the choruses, they're like this chapel where we get to express our devotion.
Yeah, I love that. You get to sort of learn and then ponder and worship, after that. And it's sort of all one experience. Where did this idea come from with the 75th anniversary to say, hey, let's get all these powerhouse artists together to do a new version of this beloved hymn?
Yeah, so normally some of these old hymns, you can do whatever you want with them. They're public domain. You can add a chorus, you can leave a verse out, chop and change bits up. But with this hymn, it's still under copyright, and the publisher is called Stuart Hine Trust. And they're very protective of it. Like normally, if you go and say, hey, I want to do this to it or change this up, they wouldn't permit that. And they actually, this trust where, they've been putting loads of proceeds for years into beautiful causes. And so they actually came to me and said, it's the 75th anniversary of the hymn coming up. But also what a lot of people don't know is all the words that we sing in this hymn, this English version, were written in Ukraine by a British missionary, Stuart Hine, where the trust came from. And so these words were written in the Carpathian Mountains of Ukraine. And so it seems like an especially poignant time to have a new version. So they said, look, the old version is what it is, and it will always be what it is, but could you write a new section and have a brand new version of this? And so, got together with a friend of mine called Mitch Wong, and we tried to rise to the challenge. Very, a lot of trepidation, messing with something that people love so much already is not something you take lightly. But we jumped into it, and we felt like from the beginning, I think that we should have the word war in this hymn. And that feels like a strange word in a worship song or something for a Sunday morning. But actually, that's the reality of life, right? And worship isn't meant to be escapist. So we're meant to face the brutal reality sometimes of our world head on, but then sing with grace and faith and hope over that. And so hopefully that's what the new version does. It's the new words, and as we walk this broken, warring world, we're going to pray, deliver us from evil, your kingdom come, and we're going to sing how great you are with hope in our hearts. And it was beautiful getting to write it, but then, like you say, when it really came to life, I was in the studio with all these other powerhouse vocals on it, Hillary Scott from Lady A, and Naomi Raine, TAYA, Chris Tomlin, Blessing Offor. The list goes on and on. It was wonderful seeing it come to life.
Yeah, and that history in light of what's going on, here we are at the 2-year anniversary of the Ukraine war, and regardless of where people stand on any of those issues, the reality of people, suffering and what is happening there. And then that history of the song. I did not know that history. Were you familiar with that coming into this project?
Yeah, I was a little familiar with it, but obviously you've done a bit of a deeper dive since then. And what's really special is so everyone's waived all kind of rights or royalties to this. So all of the proceeds, wherever this is led or streamed or bought or whatever, all the proceeds will go to Ukraine and to humanitarian causes in Eastern Europe, and which is really, really special part of it. And another beautiful part of the story was we recorded this in 2 studios, but one of them was RCA Studio B in Nashville, and that's where Elvis recorded his classic version of this hymn. So that was a cool moment too. And actually, in the video on YouTube, you'll see him appear at one point. He's hanging on the wall in there, and Maher is playing the piano that was recorded on that version. So that was a really lovely thing too.
Yeah, no, that's really a fascinating history there and a good cause. I think it's so easy with the news cycle. You move on to the next thing and people don't always remember that there are people hurting and in desperate need. And so you guys are helping them there in Ukraine through this song. But you mentioned something before about, well, a couple of things that I think are important. Obviously the idea of war or battle, we don't always think about that in worship songs. And yet, you look at Ephesians 6, there's a spiritual battle going on. You look
Yeah.
at just life in general. We all face battles. So I think that's really pertinent.
Yeah.
But one of the other things you said about escapism and, worship music, how in your view, as somebody who's been doing this for a long time, can worship music better position us to sort of take on real life issues, be the hands and feet of Jesus?
Yeah, I think songs have such a beautiful opportunity to do that. They can go so deep into people's lives and become the soundtrack to their most intense moments, be that joy or be it pain and suffering. And honestly, we have a blueprint for that in the Psalms. Right there in the middle of the Bible, these 150 songs would have been the hymn book of Jesus as he walked this earth. But it's astonishing, really, isn't it? There's a songbook in the middle of the Bible, and these songs are teeming with emotion. I mean, they are so intense. Every imaginable emotions in there, anger and desperation, and and then you've got joy and celebration, and pretty much everything in between, and anxiety, fear, all the things that we face now, and it is astonishing that these songs that were written 3,000 years ago, with pretty much nothing in our life looks the same as what their life looked like. These songs still live and live in us and resonate with us. And so that's the kind of example for us. And for me, I kind of learned this to a degree years ago. My wife and I wrote this song, Blessed Be Your Name. And the reason was we were in America at the time on sabbatical, and 9/11 had just happened. And we were traveling around churches, and I felt like a lot of the preachers were speaking some really helpful things. But I was thinking, where are the songs? It feels like we're just singing all the songs we always sung, but this just had this major national, event that everyone's feeling has a lot of questions, and there's a sense of brokenness. And, you know, where are the songs? Where's the vocabulary for a moment like this? And it feels like we should have one because that would be relevant and helpful to people, but also because it's hugely biblical.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's incredibly important to be thinking through it. And, somebody like you, a lot of people, they create music and it's out there and it's popular and, and then it sort of goes to the wayside and people still listen to it. But when it comes to worship, that holds the potential to be, as you were just saying, something that stays with people for a very, very long time. And
Yeah.
it's used in actual worship of God. So I would imagine there's a weightiness to that that doesn't necessarily maybe exist as much in regular mainstream Christian music. What lessons have you learned? What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned? You've been doing this a long time now and have had a chance to work on a lot of incredible projects.
Yeah, honestly, lots of lessons. I mean, one of them would be like to put your own story in there, but not to such a detail that other people can't attach their own story to it, right? So you've got to be real, and but and so you're not faking it, right? But at the same time, if you're so specific to your own everyday thing, other people can't attach their own stories to it. So that's one thing. Universal theme in a unique way is a great thing for any songwriter. And, sing about something that matters to people, that is relevant, that touches us all. That's biblical if you're a worship songwriter. The universal theme, but try and find a unique way to say it. Try and find a fresh way in, whether it be melodically or lyrically. And honestly, the biggest thing I learned along the way is co-write. We're better together. Most things in the kingdom of God are designed to not be done as the Lone Ranger. When we get together and bring the best out of each other and lean into each other's strengths, it can be very special. And that definitely was the case with How Great Thou Art. From the co-write with Mitch Wong through to Matt Maher and a guy called Steve Marcia producing it, through to those 15 friends joining in the studio. And actually, to be honest, all the managements and the labels all agreeing to it, all jumping into it wholeheartedly, saying we can take it to radio, all those little things. It's been a gigantic team effort. And that's probably the biggest lesson for me of always. We're designed to flow in community.
Well, I love that. And my final question for you, where can people go to get your version of How Great Thou Art?
You can go all the normal kind of digital streaming platforms, Spotify and Amazon and Apple and all those, and you can get it on YouTube. We have a lovely video featuring all those singers on there. And if you want to see a live version of it, I just led it at If Gathering in Dallas this week, where we had different nations from around the world join us. So I sung some sections, but we had sections sung from Singapore, India, Romania, a couple other places. And so if you look up on YouTube, If Gathering, from a few days ago, you can see a beautiful live version of it with about 10,000 people in a room singing it.
Well, very good. I really appreciate you taking the time, joining us and sharing. Again, it's How Great Thou Art. We all know the song. You've put a new version out, and people can support Ukraine in the process of supporting that song. Thanks for your time today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to speak to you. Thanks so much.
That's all for today's Newsmakers podcast. Be sure to tune in for the next episode of the show, and also head over to the CBN News YouTube channel and the CBN News channel to watch Newsmakers every week. We'll see you soon.